Now, the ugly spectacle of coconut waste in streets of many cities in Ghana may be a thing of the past very soon. That's because one young man has started a business that is turning coconut waste into relatively cheaper charcoal. His business, Zarcoal, is receiving support from the Ghana Climate Innovation Center. And in our Climate Focus series this week, my colleague Justice Bedu visited the company not so far away in Dodoa, right here in the Greater Accra region. And this is the report he filed.
On the outskirts of the Dodoa township, a young man is scooping dry coconut shells from a heap he and his team have collected mainly from the streets of Accra. Their organization, Zarcoal, uses this waste from coconut shells to manufacture charcoal.
You notice there were a lot of coconut vendors in every corner of Accra. So you realize these guys are generating so much coconut waste on a daily basis. Is there anything that we could do, you could use them for?
Zarcoal is producing charcoal as an alternative source of fuel, not just to solve the problem of deadly smokes, but also solve challenges mainly from coconut waste.
It's compressed, very well processed. We take off almost every fiber in it, so it burns very cleanly with little to no smoke at all. Burns longer than regular charcoal, burns hotter than regular charcoal, extremely affordable as well.
Zarcoal is turning around what is a major problem into a solution.
I was a vulcanizer on the street, pumping tires. It's not easy. We stand in the sun, working, and
And we're very honored to have him right here in the studio with us, Mr. Amin Sule, the founder of Zarcoal. How are you? Nice to see you. Very innovative there. Tell us about how this idea even popped into your mind. Charcoal from coconuts.
It's quite interesting. I was actually a law student, right? We're trying to wear the suit and tie and then defend people in the court, and then on the usual commute to class, I used to use Osu, Oxford Street a lot. And then I realized that on almost every junction on the Oxford Street, there's somebody selling coconut. It actually occurred to me unconsciously, but I realized, like joke, every junction, somebody they sell coconut. So out of curiosity, I remember parking to ask the guy, one of the guys, what does he do with the waste when he's done selling? And then it turns out that they all throw it all at the beach right behind the Independence Square, or they pay waste management companies to pick it up. And that's how the whole journey started for me. It was like, okay, so if there's this much coconut waste in the city, what can we do with it? And it was through a lot of thought processes, trying to understand, do we have enough of these to sustain? What exactly was I even going to use it for? And then I would say the real inspiration actually came from a Kenke seller in my neighborhood in North Kaneshi, Fadama. And then we realized this woman was using the coconut husk in the fire instead of firewood. And that was where it really hit me hard that, oh, so instead of firewood, she's using coconut. This same firewood is used to make charcoal. Can we use coconut for charcoal? It all started with a question, and then we kept trying. Like, we did all the tests, we became the scientists, we did everything, and then here we are.
Now let's be clear, I mean, you're not a scientist, you were a law student.
I'm actually an art student.
So talk to me about the process of grappling with the science of it. Was it difficult? Did you need help?
I'm actually a very curious person, right? Like, I read stuff that have nothing to do with what I'm reading or what I'm studying. So I'm actually very fascinated about engineering, like rocket science. So I know almost so much about almost every rocket engine around, and then especially military aviation. So anytime I watch some of these documentaries, I feel like, why can't we do what these guys are doing? So it's always a way to challenge myself to create something. I don't really see Zarcoal that much of an innovation because I feel we can do better.
Well, that's inspiring.
Yeah.
Now, we're excited because a board member of the GCIC, who have offered you quite a lot of support in your initiative, is joining us here in the studio. It's been a while, Lucy.
Yeah.
Lucy Quist is with
Good
us.
to see you.
Very nice to see you. Now, this is exciting stuff. First of all, when this came to you, when this concept came to you, I'm sure you did a bit of cost and benefit and tried to figure out, whether it's sustainable, right? What was the conclusion you drew?
Well, obviously, we concluded that it was sustainable, which is why we have Zako on display here today. But at the GCIC, we take very seriously with the partners who support us the idea that climate change is real, but we can harness what could turn out to be disastrous climate change into innovative businesses that can benefit not just the entrepreneur but the society at large. So we don't have to throw our arms up in the air and say, oh, climate change is going to be a disaster.
Right.
It's rather to say, what can we do about it, and positively. And the fact that an entrepreneur can look at something that is prevalent in our society and create business out of it, for us was, I mean, I'm personally, even beyond just the GCIC, I am personally so excited about Zako. I'll tell you two very short anecdotal reasons why. First of all, many months ago, I remember going on a walk, and I just as I turned up from Dankwa Circle, Dankwa Atosu, up to going up the ring road towards Akwaje, and it happens repeatedly. Massive pile of coconut husks being burnt. First of all, this open burning is wrong, but at Dankwa Circle of all places, I mean, if we have no reverence for anywhere for that kind of location, it tells you the state of the country.
100 meters away from the fire.
Right, and we can have an open fire. I mean, I wrote about it. I couldn't help myself. The second one is a more direct personal story. I remember being a child and my grandmother asking me to light a wood fire and the thing getting in my eyes. And we had a whole drama that day because I was like, I can't, this smoke business doesn't work for me. And she was livid. This child, who do you think you are? I need to work on this child. Zako is clean energy. Right, from something that we all love. We all love coconut. We keep producing the waste. There's so many uses of coconut husk. Zako is a perfect example of that, and you won't run out of supply. We're talking about this. He's not going to run out because
I was going to ask him that at some point, but
I am actually running away from supply.
Wow, well, that's positive. That makes your business very sustainable. But I've always been curious about the impact on the climate. And all around the world, the climate change conversation is raging. How important is it to Ghana? Are we anywhere near the point where we need to be worrying about these things?
I think climate change is real for every country. It's unfortunate that we don't have all of the data readily available to us, but we do have some data at the Ghana Climate Innovation Center, and we also have anecdotal evidence. So most of us, when we talk to our grandparents, our parents, they tell you about the changes in the seasons, the shifting of seasonal patterns, the changes in temperatures, the changes in rain patterns. Farmers will tell you the same. So even anecdotally, without looking at all the numbers, we know things are changing. And we're almost confused a little bit because the change happens, but we're not really sure why it's changing and how it's changed. So yes, climate change really, really is here. And I think every country in the world has a responsibility to participate in correcting the adverse impact of climate on the environment.
Enough has been said about how difficult it is to do business in Ghana. Startups in particular have a rough time of it. So tell us about the role of GCIC in facilitating this. What specific problems do you solve for businesses?
So I think I'd like to commend the team at Zako first of all, because I always say that a lot of our problems are solved through, I talk about STEM a lot, and it's because basically it's fundamentally about problem solving. Now, what I admire about so much about Amin and his team is that they haven't sat back and said, I'm not a scientist, and we need to create different paths into problem solving. figure out what it's about, be curious enough about your work and do it. So when people come to GCIC, because it's climate related, invariably a lot of it has a science element to it to re-engineer things. But a lot come at a stage, I mean, some come at varying stages, some completely zero, they just have a plan on paper. Some have been trying to run for a while, but they need some guidance on how do you actually run a business, how do you set up, so on and so forth. I mean, you had your idea already before you came to GCIC, and we put in place interventions that actually take the creator, the innovator, on an entrepreneurial journey to give them the tools, the skills, the ability, and in some cases, and I think in your case, a bit of financial support as well. But the core focus is helping him to create a sustainable business. Because it doesn't matter how much you give the business person, if it's not a sustainable business, he'll run out of cash and he'll be back to zero.
Yeah. Well, thank God for you, right?
Thank God for the partners who make it possible.
Indeed, indeed. And what a great idea.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see where you take it. Are you planning to open a few other factories in a few districts?
Yeah, we're looking at opening some facilities in coconut growing areas. But then one other challenge we identified was, even though most of the coconuts were coming from the eastern and the western part of the country, Accra consumes a lot of it, and it's the waste that we use. So probably would want to grow Accra much bigger to serve the other parts of the country.
Right. So obviously it's not been smooth sailing from the very beginning. I'm sure you had some challenges, right?
We still have We still have a lot of challenges. Being here today actually it's quite overwhelming for me, because this is something that started in my backyard, like driving on the street, seeing coconuts, now quitting school to now become a coconut collector, going around. I became a mate practically with a driver who go collect coconuts just to make sure what we wanted to do was achievable. Now we achieve it, and now we realize it's doable. People are using it, they're giving us the comments we were really expecting to hear. So how do we take this to the market? You need machines, you need a lot of investment, you need to really build yourself up. A lot of times I have told myself, this has been the most challenging thing I've ever done. Let me just chip this in. There's this recent conversations about mental health and stuff. The mental stress you go through, it's overwhelming, and people don't really talk much about it, the stress you go through, because you've already stuck your neck out. You want people to know you have something and you really want to grow it. But then these things don't grow on their own. They need a lot of support, a lot of financial support, mental support, people to really understand what you're going through. So to you feel you're doing so much, the outside world, it kind of appears you're taking time to really get there. So if you don't take your time to balance all these pressures that come in from within and from outside, it becomes a big stress. I quit school and started with my school fees. And I wish I had not done that, but we won't give up too.
Wow. Well, with conviction like yours, I'll bet partners like Lucy have no doubt that you'll go all the way. Now, Lucy, how exactly do you think that people like Mr. Sule here can maximize interventions like these for the growth of Ghana? Final thoughts on this?
I think that, first of all, the work of GCIC, Ghana Climate Innovation Center, is extremely important in supporting inventors. He really is an inventor. Inventors like, to get off the ground. The next step is, and I say this to anybody watching, let's redirect our investments. This is the kind of business that when you invest in, you will get a return, because he's solving a problem. When you solve it, everyone says to me, Lucy, a person is not an entrepreneur unless they're solving a problem. And they're right. If you solve a problem, you have a revenue stream ahead of you. Now, I think it's 70% of cooking in Ghana that's done with charcoal.
There's
something
actually
like that.
over 70%.
Over 70%.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Of the 30 million of us, when we eat, 70% of the fuel is charcoal. if we can have a more sustainable, more eco-friendly source of fuel, and you put your money in that, you have revenue streams to come. So I would say, yes, GCIC, we get them off the ground. Come to us and find them and meet them and invest in their businesses for Ghana's progress and development. Cleaner energy, good for all of us.
Cleaner Ghana.
And a cleaner Ghana, of course. Get those casks off the ground.
We've worked our little slogans in there beautifully. Oh, that's so impressive. And I don't mince words when I say I think we're just meeting you at the very beginning of a wonderful journey. And we wish you the very best. Lucy, well spotted. Nice work.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Wow. Well, Amin Sule is the founder of ZACO. And of course, Lucy Quist is a board member of the Ghana Climate Innovation Center, GCIC.